What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Will Brinson here, along with a fantastic cast and crew, as usual, joining me to break down Saints at Chiefs. Alex Selznick, Eric Cohen, Ken Brooks. What's up, everybody? How we doing?
What's up, Brinson, EC, Mackenzie? Great to see you guys. I'm fired up. I think this is a sneaky, fun matchup. We get the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs. We get an offense that scored the most points in the open within the first 2 weeks than any team in league history. I'm not sure if we knew that. Little Clint Kubiak coordinating there has had a big impact on the Saints. So I'm excited for this matchup, guys. I do want to also take a bow right now because I did hit the last, or I didn't hit, but I got the last Goose parlay from Goose, and it cashed for us big time on the last Thursday night stream. So ready to get right back to it, guys.
Let's do it.
I had quite the cash last night myself for the show. Did not hit a single prop straight bet. However, did cash the plus 600 4-legger that was strictly based off vibes. So maybe that's where I need to be going back to tonight as well.
See, I love hearing that, Kent. I love hearing vibes and cashing big parlays. So I'm going to do my best. I don't know if it's going to match up, but I have a 6-legger later in the show that I will see what I can do. Last week went 3-0 on the stream, so I'll take it. Proppy, you're on fire with the prop picks, 4-2 from the Friday show. So great job there. So hopefully I can live up in the great company that I'm with. I want to make some good picks here.
3 consecutive 4-1 or 4-2 weeks on our Friday prop show, which is going to be seen at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. It is the best prop show on YouTube, on CBS, on any network. I'll put us up against anyone.
I love it. Uncle Dave Richard involved in that too, right? I kind of regret last night with both like DFS and our props. Like, kind of, first of all, that crazy delay with that storm, it's wild. But secondly, like, I don't know, maybe that was a smash spot for unders. And I'm not sure why I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. It was a great spot for unders. And if you had, who scored the first touchdown? It was like Hayward. It was like Carson Hayward. It was like the most random, if like too random for us to even get to.
Yeah, but you like that, Brinson. You like picking those random players.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm on the Monday stream, you always pick. You had a 40-1 last week, so I can't wait to see what you throw out.
When
this
I hear Carson Hayward, I think of Mike McClure and Sia Najad. Shout out to the great Mike McClure and Sia Najad because they love the long shots. I saw Mike hit a couple 75-1 first touchdown scorers on previous streams.
That's what Danny Brass play too, though. Danny loves himself like a 35-1er for first touchdown.
Danny may love them, but Mike hits them.
Remember Danny had the one. It was like a 35-1 tight end. It was inactive, but he's like still listed. Not Danny's fault. Love Danny. Worth noting, report from Ian Rappaport of NFL Media shortly before this game set to kick off that Rashee Rice likely going to miss the rest of the regular season. Sucks. He was, there's an off-field stuff. We'll see how he has to handle that. That we can worry about that later. But from a best ball perspective and a fantasy perspective, I had several suitcases worth of Rashee Rice packed up, and he was so cheap this offseason.
Now, Brinson, Adam Schefter came out and refuted that and said that the injury is not as bad as initially thought. So that kind of refutes Rappaport. So they're saying that LCL injury potentially back later this year. I guess we'll see.
We can only hope and pray. I've been a Rashee Rice truther from day one, back when he was an SMU Mustang. So had high hopes. He was off to a fantastic start. Looked like he was going to be one of the best values in fantasy. And certainly we had cashed him on quite a few props already in the first quarter of the season. So can only hope that Rashee Rice gets back to it. But I do believe that there is a Chief, a.k.a. Old Faithful, a.k.a. a future Hall of Famer, who's going to pick up a lot of that production, and I may or may not like one of those.
Are you suggesting that the Chiefs may be able to shake it off and move on? Is that what? Yeah. Even Swifties don't like shake it off. I love shake it off.
I love shaking off as well.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, like I'm like a middle-aged dad. Of course, I love shaking off. Anywho, let's get to the game, and we will talk about the odds. We have the Chiefs as, I believe, 5.5-point favorites at home with a total of 43 in this game. Proppy, your thoughts on this spread, this total? Anything side or total that interests you at all?
Fascinating matchup here between these two teams. We've got a team that's 4-0 that feels like they've played a little bit above expectations, but that's what the Chiefs do. They don't really it's not really pretty, but they always seem to obviously take care of business despite not placing seemingly a huge emphasis on the regular season. Then we have the Saints, who got off to that incredible start. However, they've kind of sputtered a bit over the past 2 weeks. What is this Saints team? Is this Saints the team that we saw over the first 2 weeks that scored over 90 combined points and looked like arguably the best team in the NFL? Or are they the team that struggled mightily over the last 2 weeks and looked like it was just going to be another Saints team with a fairly ineffective or inefficient Carr and somewhat bland offense? But I tend to think they're more somewhere in between, obviously. I don't think they're obviously going to be averaging 45 points per game, but I do think they're improved compared to last season. I do believe the offense, far less bland. We're seeing a lot more pre-snap motion, a lot more play action. Derek Carr has been incredibly effective on play action attempts. Alvin Kamara is having an incredible resurgence as well as an aging running back. He's the number 1 overall running back, I believe, in fantasy. So he's certainly been dynamic. He also is able to contribute, whether it's a game script where they're trailing or behind. So I think this Saints offense is good. Better than expectations, better than people thought coming into the year, certainly. I think 5.5, frankly, is a lot of points for this Chiefs team, who I believe could be in for a little bit of a letdown spot here. So I do lean towards the Saints.
Kens, any thoughts on side or total for or actually, EC, sorry, you go first because Kens has a fancy graphic to toss up. Thoughts on the side or total here?
Yeah, I love the Saints here tonight. Based on everything that Proppy just said, I think the 5.5 seems like a gift. I think they are due to play better than they did the last couple weeks. I mean, they've had 2 close losses. Losing that game to Atlanta was kind of inexcusable on a 58-yard field goal. Now you're looking at Kansas City without Isaiah Pacheco, their top running back, without Rashee Rice, as Proppy talked about. I think this one is low scoring in honor of our buddy Danny Brasco's not here. Lower scoring, but I'm playing the Saints plus 5.5. Give me Chiefs 20, Saints 19. But I would not be surprised if New Orleans won this game outright. Just a gut feeling, and I hope I'm not off base on that.
Would be spicy if New Orleans won outright. I think 2019 sounds about right to me. I like the Saints. I didn't put it in as a play. I went with the under here, particularly if we have a Chiefs team that's favored, if we have a Chiefs team that is missing Rashee Rice, and if we have a Chiefs team that can get a lead, and I think they can, mainly because you have injuries on the interior of the offensive line for the Saints. Chris Jones is a problem, and if you get Derek Carr pressured, you can cause him to make mistakes. You can get the ball in advantageous situations. And I think that if the Chiefs have a lead in the second half, as we've talked about before, Andy Reid will milk the clock. He will pound the ball. They got Carson Steele. They've got Kareem Hunt in there starting tonight. He was full participant on Saturday. I think he gets a lion's share of the carries. Don't know that he'll be incredibly explosive, but I do think they'll do enough in the passing game to move the ball, get a lead, squat on that. Saints come in the back door, totally fine with it, but I have the under here as a play for me. Kens, what does the model like?
The model shocker is pretty in line with the odds makers here. You know me, I'm a huge Saints girls. I've been talking about the Saints since probably April when we really started looking at NFL.
Didn't you do a hype video on the hyping the Saints?
They made a highlight reel of all of my gassing up the Saints literally since spring. So obviously, personally, my gut tells me to back the Saints. My only qualms with the Saints here so far is no Taysom Hill. I don't think it should be this impactful. It seems to be very impactful for this team, especially on third downs. They always look to him into the end zone as well. So I think that freaks me out a little bit not having him here. And Derek Carr facing an actual pass rush. Last time he faced an actual pass rush was against the Eagles, and that was a really gross, low-scoring game. So those are the two things that make me like not all over this 5.5 covering the Saints. If I were to lean, I just like, I mean, those are my boys. Rashid Shaheed, that's my guy. So if I was to lean away, I go to Saints, but that's what's making me hezzy a little bit.
Yeah, what you got, probably?
Do want to point out that 5.5 is a lot of points when we're looking at a 43.5 point total. So
I will say also
there.
the
also want to point.
Probably.
I also want to point out this Saints defense as a unit is playing fantastic football. 4th in EPA allowed per play. So I do think without Rashee Rice, while Patrick Mahomes more than capable of overcoming big losses, that is a substantial loss. Also losing Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt was not on a roster, which should tell you something regarding where he's at right now. So while he is familiar with an Andy Reid offense, I do think he'll be serviceable in pass protection. I don't think there's a lot of juice left with Kareem Hunt running behind Cleveland's offensive line, which is one of the best run blocking units in the NFL, averaging sub 3.2 yards per carry over the past 2 seasons there. So I just don't see Kareem Hunt making a big impact. Frankly, I think Steele showed a lot more juice, or at least should at least still be involved in early downs here. So I think this offense will struggle against the Saints defense that really is playing good football.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that like the Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They turn it on when they know they do it a lot. It's a lot like the Patriots, right? They know how to get to January and they know how to turn it on in January, and that's what dynastic teams do. With the Chiefs, they haven't been very good on offense dating back to really 2022 outside of the playoffs, like the regular season. They haven't been a cover machine. They haven't been efficient or explosive on offense. Xavier Worthy has flashed in big plays, but I mean, he's not like a number one wide receiver yet. And I don't think you can expect that from a rookie. Even, we were doing the Pick Six show every week, probably, and you would toss out last year. You would toss out Rashee Rice numbers and be like, "This is the time to buy this guy," and he did turn it on eventually. But we've seen even rookie wide receivers in the Andy Reid systems don't typically come on like gangbusters necessarily. Okay, let's get to. By the way, I saw somebody in the chat say that they're in Florida. Prayers up for Florida. Wild. So I've never seen anything like. It's like that thing. If you were woke up this morning early and went to work, Milton was a cat 1, and then you get back, like you go to your lunch break, he's a cat 5. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So be safe down there. If you have questions about specific player props, put them in the chat. We will talk about them. Actually, Alex Ratcliffe notes KC starts slow. Nola first half. I don't really hate first half, second half bet on Saints Chiefs. Like, I think the Chiefs.
There's a wild trend on the Chiefs not covering first halves of games. And I briefly saw a graphic that I want to say they're like 1 in 10 in the last 11 games covering first half spreads.
That's not great. I was going to look and see if I could find okay, I think I've got it right here. Just a halftime, full-time Saints Chiefs 6-1. That's pretty good. God, I mean, I would sprinkle. I'd put like a half unit on that.
Than the full 5.5, while the Chiefs are still figuring out this offense and what they're doing with their 2019 roster that they're working with right now.
Yeah, and one of the things about the Chiefs too is like, Andy Reid, great off the bye, great with any time to prepare, great at halftime adjustments, and Steve Spagnuolo as well. So I think you could see certainly some adjustments by them, figure out what New Orleans is doing on defense, figure out a way to win this game, even if they're trailing at half or it's close at half. Let's get to the inactives very quickly. Clyde Edwards-Helaire out. I know Mecole Hardman will play. Tom Pelissero reported. Keandre Miller out. Dennis Allen hates him. Why would he be in? And then Kareem Hunt obviously playing. So. And then there's some guys who are banged up on that offensive line for the Saints as well. What's up, Katie Mox? Shout out to Katie Mox.
Got our girl.
Appreciate you jumping in there. Katie and I believe Katie had we do like a 5. We get 5 picks each week on Thursdays. We did it on Friday this week. I swept the board. How about it? Revenge game stuff, 5-0. And now only down 4 units on the season, so that's something.
There you go.
And then Katie threw out like 2 anytime touchdown scorers. They were like 2.5 or 1 or longer, and hit both of them. Brock Bowers and Roshan Johnson for the Bears. Very impressive stuff. So make sure to check that out. It's on HQ on Thursdays or Fridays on Spotlight. Let's get to player props. Proppy. I'm struggling with another Taylor Swift reference that will make Ken's cringe. So I'll just ask you, what do you have?
I've got a prop I love. I'm going to talk about another one that I like quite a bit as well. We'll start with the one I love, and it's chalky, but I love Travis Kelce tonight, guys. Going over 58.5 receiving yards for Travis Kelce. Got off to a terrible start this season. Started to look like Father Time was finally catching up with the 35-year-old future Hall of Famer. But he looked good to me last week, was way more involved in the offense as well after Rashee Rice went down. The reason I think that's notable is that he is by far the likeliest candidate to pick up, a lot of that production that Rashee Rice was getting as the focal point of the passing attack. I now think that's going to be Travis Kelce here moving forward. Not only is he their best offensive player without Rashee Rice, but he operates in the same areas of the field and wins in the same areas of the field as Rashee Rice, which bodes very well for Travis Kelce. I also think this is a sneaky good matchup for him. Reason being, Travis Kelce at his age is still very good against man coverage. The Saints play the 7th most man coverage in the NFL. They play a base cover 1 defense. Travis Kelce is very good against a base cover 1 defense. So I expect him to get maybe 8 to 12 targets tonight in this matchup. Brinson, Mackenzie, EC talked about it. Just Xavier Worthy, not quite there. The route tree is still pretty limited. They really just don't have a lot of options, coupled with the fact the Saints cover the boundaries extremely well. They have a very good secondary. They are a little bit vulnerable over the middle of the field, however, where Kelce operates. So I expect a lot of work from Kelce. He looked good to me last week. I believe he had 9 targets, finished with 7 receptions, if I'm not mistaken. So I expect that production to roll over tonight. Love his chances. We're getting an extreme discount. Typically, when Kelce's at full strength and the focal point of the offense, we're used to, this prop being up to 85, even 100 yards if we're talking about the playoffs with Travis Kelce. So I love him over 58.5 receiving yards. Looks like a great spot to back him.
I was going to say just real quickly on Kelce. One, he got 9 targets, 7 catches. Mahomes had 19 completions and only 29 attempts against the Chargers in a low-scoring game. So, yeah, like if this gets any sort of action scoring-wise, absolutely going to be peppered. Somebody in the chat asked Proppy, what do you think about laddering Kelce yards? Like, how high would you go in terms of Kelce yards?
Yeah, I'm actually a little more comfortable just taking the prop outright here. While I do think it's capable, if we're looking at this total, it's a low total. I do expect a low-scoring game. Obviously, it's projected to be low-scoring, so I just don't think this particular matchup offers the sort of high-scoring environment, the upside to have one. Obviously not impossible. I just think it's unlikely. So I'm personally more comfortable just taking the total here, or even making it a multi-unit player or unit and a half, because I really like Travis Kelce. So I'm not opposed to laddering. I just don't love this matchup for laddering. I want to talk about the Saints tight end, Juwan Johnson, however. I like him in this spot. It's a bit speculative. Juwan Johnson hasn't made a big impact this season, but the Chiefs linebackers struggle in coverage. That is the biggest weakness of this Chiefs defense. They've allowed more yards to opposing tight ends than any team in the NFL, and that's with them playing only 4 games, with most teams having played 5 games. That's how much production they've given up to tight ends. We saw likely have that big explosion in week 1. Other tight ends have just absolutely killed the Chiefs as well. I also think Steve Spagnuolo, as a defensive coordinator, he kind of forces the opponent to play left-handed, if that makes sense. And I think as a result, we'll see the wide receivers get a lot of attention. They have very good corners, a very good secondary. And again, I think they'll force some targets to be funneled to the tight end. So Foster Moreau, I think, might get a bump in usage, but Juwan Johnson, his playing time is on the rise. His snap share is on the rise. He's running more routes, and this appears to be it is frankly a fantastic matchup. So I like him over 2.5 receptions, which you can find about a plus $1.20, which is a fantastic price point as well.
I dig that. Kins is potentially going to get. We may have a surprise guest coming in. We'll see. EC, what do you like from a player prop perspective?
All right, here we go. Proppy, don't get mad at me. I saw some of the tickets that you have tonight. You like to play underline. So being on a show with you, I've learned these things. Alvin Kamara under 67.5 rushing yards, minus 115. Kansas City gives up the second fewest running back rushing yards per game thus far, 57 yards a game. They have not allowed an opposing running back over 35 yards since week 1 when Derrick Henry had 46. Okay, Kamara now, he hasn't been under 77 all year, so he's had a great year. Proppy, you talked about that. I just have a feeling we're going to see him get those yards via catches and not via rushes. So I'm rolling with the under 67.5. Also kind of a weird line. That's why I'm going the under there. All right, the other one, Brinson, hold on to your seat for this one. I can't help but doing shows when I don't have kicker props on there. So this is, you can find this one at DK. The total yards combined for field goals is 118.5. Now I'm predicting 6 field goals in this game with my 20-19 score. So that covers it. I mean, unless they're all 20-yard field, even if they're all 20-yard field goals, we hit it. New Orleans has surrendered 4 field goals twice this season. Butker has 2 or more field goals in 3 of 4. But Kansas City has given up a 50-yard field goal in 3 straight games. Okay, it's probably a dumb trend that means not much. I know Proppy's probably rolling his eyes at that one, but I'm still going with it. All we need is 119 yards. I feel good about it.
A couple of points.
Right.
First,
Yeah.
Mackenzie having some technical difficulties. Hopefully she'll be back on with us soon. Number 2, EC, context matters here. Just because the Chiefs haven't allowed a lot of rushing yards doesn't necessarily mean they're a good run defense. It means that they're playing with a lot of leads and teams aren't running the ball against them in neutral game scripts. Again, not saying the Kamara under is bad. I just think the context really matters. That's why we have efficiency metrics like EPA per rush. Again, Chiefs above average run defense, but that just because they haven't allowed a lot of rushing yards doesn't necessarily mean fading the opposing running back is a good spot. I will say Kamara playing excellent football. To your point, EC, he possesses the type of versatility where he's going to be a focal point of the offensive game plan, regardless of the game script. If they're trailing, that you heavily utilize him in the short area passing game. That's why if you were going to play a Kamara prop, his combo lines are very attractive. But I did want to point out regarding fading running backs with the Chiefs, teams aren't running the football against them because they're likely playing with leads in the majority of their games.
But hold on, Proppy. Last week, it was 10-10 Chargers and Chiefs going into the fourth quarter. J.K. Dobbins, 14 carries, 32 yards.
Again, I agree they have an above-average run defense. I'm just saying the context with those statistics off.
Well, and worth noting too, like that context comes into play here where they're a 5.5 point favorite. Like I was really surprised to see that Alvin Kamara's reception prop over or under 5.5 was like minus 175, and over 5.5 was like plus 135. I believe that I actually had that as one of my props that I'm giving out. Over 5.5 receptions plus 135. I like to give out some chalky stuff sometimes. This is a great look. Like 6 catches. He had, if Derek Carr is being pressured, he's going to dump it off like crazy. And Kamara is a perfect option in that sense. I think they'll use him in, maybe some of those Texas routes or some sort of like out in the flat, whether it's screens. They'll want to get him involved in that passing game in order to alleviate the pressure on Derek Carr, to make life easier, to set up the play action, to potentially throw downfield. And so I think if you're getting that kind of plus money, 4.5 receptions, minus whatever, maybe you prefer. But I mean, 5.5, like he can get 6 passes in the first half. And if they're trailing late in the second half, he's definitely going to catch a ton of passes.
And just to piggyback on your point, Brinson, as well, we talked about the linebackers really struggling in coverage. That also bodes extremely well for Alvin Kamara here. And there's a reason why the Chiefs this year and previous years always are at the top of the list for most receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs. Part of that is because teams are often trailing versus the Chiefs, but it's because they historically, even Andy Reid dating back to when he coached my Eagles, he just didn't place a high emphasis on having linebackers that could cover. And that just seems to be a continual theme where they're willing to give up a little production there.
Let me ask you guys about Kamara for a second.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something. Don't you think this workload that he's getting, though, is a little concerning in terms of this guy's going to break down? 29 years old. We know how running backs, that magic age of 30, they kind of break down. That's what concerns me. That, are we going to see more Jamal Williams? I mean, Jamal Williams isn't very good at this stage of the game. He's not getting 15 touchdowns or whatever it was that he had the other year for Detroit. Nonetheless, I'm just concerned that. Yeah, he led the league. But I'm concerned that Kamara at some point is going to break down. I mean, Proppy, you're right. He very well could go over and I lose. Now, for your bet that I know you have kind of separately, I do think he will have more rushing yards than Kareem Hunt. So there you go.
Just for the record, EC is referencing I have a large parlay where I've hit every single leg. And the last remaining leg that I need is Alvin Kamara to outrush Kareem Hunt tonight. And it's a pretty.
I got you, Proppy. I got you. Let's go.
Day. So, yeah, hopefully we get that. But aside from that, I do believe that Kamara being at his age is fairly fresh. If we recall the first 2 to 3 years of his career, he was in a complete timeshare with Mark Ingram. So he doesn't have the
also missed several games in suspension last year too. So
exactly. So I think he's actually a young, 29, considering early in the season, and as you mentioned, having missed the amount of time he has as a suspension. Really, the guy to keep an eye on if there was another running back is Kendre Miller. I think between the draft capital, it's been frustrating him not being involved. Very talented back, in my opinion. So I do think he just came off of was he on the pup? I think he was on the pup list or a suspension. But I do believe he's eligible.
He was on the pup list, but he's in Dennis Allen's doghouse. He's been killing him all preseason, all off season, and he's not active tonight. So it's like if Kendre Miller comes back and is productive for the Saints, it's probably late in the year when they're like maybe if the team falls apart and they put Kamara on the bench
and want to go look at him
like that. Yeah, exactly. All right. We are still working through some technical difficulties with Ken's. So I suppose that we can – I'm trying to filibuster a bit here. Why don't we look at some questions?
Hey,
Kelsey's back.
There she is.
Thank you.
I don't know how
Sorry.
you were just you were really lost without me there, Brinson. That was really sweet. I'm here.
Well, I was scrolling through the rundown and I was like, okay, the next three things are Ken's items that I'm supposed to get to. But why don't you tell us what? Yeah, give us your props.
All right. We're going Derek Carr, under 20.5 pass completions. Now, I do love my Saints. However, the game script for them is typically not Derek Carr massive load of pass completions. Outside of the Atlanta game where they have absolutely no pass rush, he's gone under this number every single other week, even when they've had successful weeks. Like it's Kamara on the ground, and then it's 80-yard bombs to Rashid Shaheed and maybe Chris Olave too. So even if they have a successful night, I just think 20.5 is a lot on top of the pass rush from the Chiefs that we're working with. I talked about it earlier, but when they faced a real pass rush like the Eagles, things started to not go their way. And then Patrick Mahomes, look, getting him at even money to go over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I mean, if we looked at this a year or 2 years ago, it's just like, I mean, on his career, he's like 74% to this over. And I understand all the injuries and everything, but I just have a hard time believing Worthy and Kelsey both don't get a touchdown. Like between the two of them, Kelsey's starting to get his fire back. Proppy's talking about how successful he could be here. He is so unbelievably due to get in the end zone. If not him, I feel like we get Worthy. And then with Kareem Hunt, we're getting back to the old ways here with the old squad back together. He had 14 touchdowns in Mahomes' first season, half of them being receiving touchdowns. I feel like with this team specifically, we get some creative running back sets here. We get some receiving touchdowns for the back. So between Hunt, Steele, Worthy, Kelsey, and we get even money on Patrick Mahomes to have 2 passing touchdowns, I feel like we gotta take a little sprinkle on that as well.
Yeah, it feels like we could see one of two things happen with the Mahomes passing touchdowns, where it's either those sort of jet motion things that they did in the Super Bowl against the Niners and I think the Eagles as well, where they, Mecole Hardman, perfect spot for him. He runs in and cuts back out. He's in the flat. Or are we going to Xavier Worthy jet sweep where he just cuts across and it qualifies as a passing touchdown? Let's get to some chat questions. Walter Rogers Jr. asked, Hunt rushing attempts over 11.5. So Kareem Hunt had 14 carries for 69 yards last week against the Chargers. I don't hate 11.5, I guess, but I don't. I think it's the issue you probably run into is if they have any sort of lead, do they just pop Carson Steele in there and just pound like the fullback up the middle, and that's where you might run into trouble.
I still think Carson Steele is going to be heavily involved. I anticipate him receiving 6 to 10 carries and still be the back they use in early down. Really Kareem Hunt's strength at this point of his career. While the performance was impressive last week, it's his ability to play on third downs, in pass protection, on obvious passing downs. He's still a good receiving back. I do think that level of production that he had last week will not be sustainable season long. So the Saints also have a good run defense as well. And I just think he's unlikely to get 12 carries tonight.
Urban Sidewalk asks Juju over 14.5 receiving yards, then notes that it's Juju. It's now up to 18.5 for Juju.
Juju has an absolutely brutal matchup. The Saints are very good at covering the areas that Juju runs routes in. It's obviously a low number, and it's attractive, so I understand that component. But, yeah, I think this matchup is a very, very difficult one for Juju. So I'd be looking elsewhere personally.
All right, I gotta ask you guys one. You talked about Hunt here. Hunt in a league that I'm in, Proppy, can Hunt get 13 points for Uncle Dave to beat me or no?
Is it the league we're in?
Yep.
So it's a PPR league?
Half-point PPR for running backs. Or no, sorry, it's PPR for running backs. Yeah.
I think he'll need a touchdown.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right, we have a roommate bet.
Roommate's been a Twitter. She's been a Twitter legend. This is my roommate Gabby. She hits first touchdowns. She
What's
hits
up, Gabby?
touchdowns. She hits 2 leg parlays that involve soccer teams and Scotty Scheffler winning the Masters. They're 2 months apart. She's really on fire and she's sharp. So we're giving her some live first touchdown opportunities here. You got Kelsey on the board. She has her Taylor Swift sweatshirt on. For those
Nice.
at home.
That's the same one. That's the same one that Belichick was wearing in that photo with his like 40-year-old girlfriend.
Brinson's a massive Swiftie as well.
Yeah,
that's right. I am a massive Swiftie.
All right, this is our first touchdown options presented by BetMGM. Go with your gut. Go with the vibes.
I'm going with Justin Watson.
Sharp play.
Yes.
Love that.
I like it.
Sure,
I like it a lot. I
Love
like
that.
that.
Feel it in my bones.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Guys.
Thanks, Gabby.
I actually pivoted off of Justin Watson in favor of Kelsey, but I love his prop tonight.
Yeah.
I love it. Sean Ritchie says both quarterbacks to throw an interception. Yeah, I like that. I'm not gonna lie if it's decent enough odds because I think we'll show in the parlays in a minute. I got Carr throwing one. Jake Melisek asks Carr over 1.5 touchdowns is plus 195.
Don't hate that with Taysom Hill out because he will get those additional looks in the red zone. It's just against the Chiefs defense that's been very good with a low total. So
Drew Martin says Justin Watson over 24.5 receiving yards at minus 110. I would say with Watson, Gabby just gave out first touchdown score of Watson. If you're going to play a Watson or a Juju prop bet in terms of your yardage, play them anytime touchdown or first touchdown because those are guys that we've seen Mahomes target like in sort of some of those weird spots. And I just think, if you're gonna hit that prop, might as well get the odds there on the first touchdown or the anytime touchdown score too. Wu-Tang Forever says Noah Gray 2.5 receptions plus 145. It feels like 2 and a touch for Noah Gray.
I mean, but Mahomes has to throw it to somebody. I mean, that's the thing. And I think I agree with Proppy. I think Kelsey's going to have a big game. Is it Justin Watson that Gabby made a pick? Is he going to get that touchdown? Is he going to get a lot of catches? Juju, Proppy says, has a tough matchup. Like, somebody's got to catch the ball. Noah Gray, I could see it. Yeah, I could see that.
Okay. And then Mike M asked Shaheed over 46.5 minus 130. Proppy or EC, please ask Will. Asked and answered by Proppy or EC.
Go ahead, Proppy.
Shaheed's boom or bust. If I'm playing a Shaheed prop, it's going to be his longest reception.
Yeah.
Because he's drawing targets down the field. I don't necessarily love the yards. I think it's fairly efficient, but I do like his longest reception. I do think Carr will take a few shots at Shaheed. The target share is very encouraging. They also have an extremely condensed target distribution. It's Shaheed, Olave, and Kamara. That's it as far as drawing targets is concerned. The Chiefs, however, are a difficult matchup. Steve Spagnuolo is an exceptional coordinator. They have excellent cover corners as well that guard the boundaries very well. So it's a tough spot for Shaheed. I do like his chances to get loose for at least one big play tonight, though.
All right, kids, give us some anytime touchdown picks.
Let's start with our boy Rashid Shaheed, because I feel like he is also incredibly due for a touchdown. He had a stretch of 4 touchdowns on 25 targets, and then has not scored a touchdown his past 2 games despite having 16 targets. So that math is not really mathing in my head, and I feel like we're getting pretty solid value considering where we'd set the line here. So I like him. I like Hardman. Look, we're brushing off the dust here of that 2019 to 22 playbook here. And I think he will have to be getting involved in this game pretty heavily. At 16 touchdowns on 57 receptions in his first 4 seasons with KC. So maybe we get back to those ways here. Another solid plus 500 play. All we're looking to do here is go 1 and 2 and make some money. And then the proppies guy, Juwan Johnson, to get in the end zone as well. No Taysom Hill as we lifted. That should give Johnson a lot more targets. He had a touchdown. Has had 1 touchdown in his last 3 games on 9 targets. So relative to plus 450, I think we are getting some solid value as well there.
I love it. Let's get to our parlays. Not to move past anytime touchdowns. I think they're all great picks. I'm just trying to make sure we're on track time-wise.
Respect.
Yeah. EC, you got a 6-legger that cashes more than 8-1.
Yeah. Yeah, we got an plus 825 here. All right, here we go. We got Saints plus 10.5 on the alt line. We have under 48.5 on the alt line. So we're kind of, based on your pick, Brinson, add a few points on. Based on my pick, add a few points on. We've got Kelsey over 50 yards, which Proppy talked about. We've got Chris Olave over 50 yards, which gets a lot of targets. We could see a 5 for 50, 6 for 60 type of game from him. We've got Alvin Kamara over 25 receiving yards, which we talked about. Now, here's the one problem, Kens. We have Patrick Mahomes under 1.5 touchdown passes. That is the last leg of the 6-legger. I feel good about the 5, but then I don't think you agree with me on that last leg, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The juice is working in your favor, implying people are thinking it's going under. But, I mean, that would just be absolutely criminal for you if you miss this on me hitting my prop. You know what you should do? You should just replace that with the Justin Watson first touchdown, because that's obviously about the cash. So maybe that's the
that's a hedge bet. That's a hedge bet on this parlay.
Where are the vibes?
No, I mean, listen, I feel Proppy. I cooked this up. This is not a goose parlay. We know that, but I cooked something up, and I think it's a pretty good one. But then when I saw Ken's pick, I was like, oh no! I felt so good. I don't know.
All right, I got a parlay as well. I think it's 7-1, and great job by Josh putting together these graphics here. My parlay is Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown scorer. I think he's due, man. It's prime time. It's at home. We assumed Taylor Swift would be there, and then Derek Carr over half interception. So Derek Carr just has to throw an interception. Kareem Hunt, 50-plus rushing yards. Not asking for the world here, just 50. You don't like that, Proppy?
I'm just afraid of that because I need Alvin Kamara to outrush him.
Well, Kamara can outrush him at 50. We can hit a window there.
I'm just afraid if he gets 50.
And then I flipped the spread completely and made the Chiefs plus 4.5. I mean, like of the 4 legs on there, if that one doesn't hit, I'll just tip my cap to the Saints for beating the Chiefs by more than 3 points in Kansas City in primetime on Monday night. And then that pays out 7-1. So, get that early Kelce touchdown. Carr, get a lead. Carr's to throw a bunch. It's kind of correlated in that sense, right? Carr's throwing a lot because they're trailing. Kareem Hunt running the ball, pops off for over 50. Chiefs cover that 4.5, and Kelce scores a touchdown. 7-1 or more. That's where the vibes are. I mean, I swear, but I do these parlays on the BetMGM app. I'm hitting a couple things. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be 3-1. I'm like, these odds are fantastic. We'll see. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We've all had our first touchdown bet called back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance with BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance. Place any first touchdown scorer bet. And if your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. Here's how it works. Place a pregame straight first touchdown scorer bet in any NFL game. If your player scores the first touchdown of the game, win your wager as normal. If your player scores the second touchdown of the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log into BetMGM for more details. All right, time for some diamond hands. We like to throw up. Who do we have? Proppy's got some diamonds there.
Proppy. Pretty.
We don't feel good to be aligned here. Look, this is for me, and I'll let you talk about Olave next, Proppy. I'll just point out I'm going Olave because I looked at the list. There's some things I like. I like, we see P. Ryan or Shaheed, very, very good prices. I think Noah Gray's a decent look. Watson, I think, is a really sharp pick as well. But you're giving me Chris Olave, who's going to be heavily targeted against specifically, like this is the type of defense that's going to funnel targets to Chris Olave. He is, top 15-ish wide receiver in the league. And because the Saints are dogs, because he hadn't had a huge year, he's 14-1. Like that is really good value for a guy like Chris Olave, who normally we might see in that sub 10-1 range, and he wouldn't be in our area there, Proppy. So that's why I'm going with Olave. I think he's just good value for his talent.
Say less, Brinson. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I don't think we're finding Olave being eligible for this if this is a game with a tighter spread. I think because the Chiefs are heavy favorites, as a result, we're getting some fantastic value on Olave, who, just to piggyback on what you said, Brinson, I think he's a top 10 receiver in the NFL, slightly held back because of the offense, but I do think, Clint Kubiak has his offense pointed in the right direction, and Olave is tremendous. He wins in all areas of the field, very good route runner, great hands, just very good at getting open. So I love Chris Olave tonight. Obviously, I had to pounce at plus 1,400.
Yeah, and I think Olave too. You feel a little bit better if they're if they could drive and get closer to the red zone. Whereas Ken's with your pick, this is shot play city, and I mean, you see Derek Carr drop back, and like you can tell when he's about to throw a deep bomb, and the first thing that runs through your mind is what name?
I'm pumped up thinking about it. You really gave me the play-by-play.
Yeah.
He's been one of those players I just have a hyper fixation on the past 2 seasons. Love betting on him in any way, shape, or form. Such a fun player to watch. Nothing would be better than getting my first gem on the back of a 65-yard bomb to Rashid Shaheed coming out of the gate. The Chiefs start slow. They can't cover first half spreads, which leads me to believe the Saints can score first. And if it's my boy Rashid Shaheed for my first gem, that's how it was meant to be.
That's how it's meant to be.
Or Dalton Kincaid, but Rashid Shaheed will do for tonight.
EC, you're dabbling. Samaje Perine, kind of a forgotten man here.
All right, but Brinson, I'm the longest shot on the board. I expected you to have like a 50-1 tonight, and I'm going with 20, and I'm the longest shot on the board. Listen, by the way, I just want to say before I make my pick, Proppy is like the wide receiver whisperer. Like Gabby is to touchdowns, Proppy is to what? When he identifies a receiver that he likes, you bet it, you draft them in fantasy. I'm just telling you what, I got to say that, Proppy. Anyways, do you know who scored the Chiefs touchdown in a 10-10 game in the fourth quarter last week from the 1-yard line? It was not Kareem Hunt. It was not Carson Steele. It was Samaje stinking Perine. He's going to do it for us at 20-1. And get me that gem tonight, please.
Somebody asked about Juju. Yeah, Juju 18-1 is a little short when you think about like Olave or Shaheed in a reasonable price range. Watson at 19-1 is a good look. I think Jawan Johnson at 22-1 is fine. Noah Gray 22-1 is fine. You can find P. Ryan, by the way, as deep as 25-1 out there if you want to shop around. And then the other name I'll just throw out that I can't take credit for, but Mason Tipton.
I think we have all the bases covered. That if someone's
I just listed every single starting player on this team.
Who is Mason Tipton, Brinson? Where'd you come up with that?
He is the protagonist in the remake of the Babysitter's Club, the new version.
Okay, fair enough.
He's now playing wide receiver for some reason. Fair enough. I don't know. You can just, it feels like with these Saints teams, sometimes some weird ass wide receivers get in the mix for a touchdown. Okay. Let's recap all our bets. Now we got it's 8:00 already. I'm on the under 43. Kamara over 5.5 receptions plus 135, and Xavier Worthy longest reception over 19.5. I actually don't know if I mentioned that one before. Really quickly, I'll point out has hit that in 2 of his first 4 games of the season. Clearly a deep threat. He can get the ball at the line of scrimmage and take it 40 yards in the blink of an eye. And Mahomes, if he's taking some deep shots down the field, certainly going to look in Xavier Worthy's direction, the fastest guy to ever run at the combine. EC on the Saints plus 5.5. Kamara under 67.5 rush yards. Total field goal yards over 118.5. And Proppy is on the Travis Kelce over 58.5 receiving yards, as well as rooting hard for a parlay that involves Kamara having more rush yards than Kareem Hunt, right? Kens, what do you have from the model plays again?
We got Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns and Carr under 20.5 completions. Oh,
Okay.
there we go. There we are, looking
There
pretty.
you go. And worth noting, Sia pops in the chat and says, Jawan Johnson, first touchdown. We don't give him a
I don't hate
diamond
it.
for it, but I look, it's a good look. Especially
You can't give Sia's ego that. If he hits this, he does not. He can't get the gem. He'll never stop
Especially-
talking about it.
especially if they get down there in the red zone and they can't run the ball with Kamara, Jawan Johnson. You see him at the back of the end zone, leaping high, catching that sailboat from Derek Carr to reel in the first touchdown. Don't mind Jawan Johnson at all. Okay, that'll do it for us. Great show, great game. Let's cash some bets. Let's get some diamond hands up. Let's win some money. Proppy rooting for your parlay pal. Ken's rooting for your roommate.
So is all.
You're not
see-
rooting for me at all, Brinson. I know. You're not rooting for me. It's okay. It's okay.
I was going to say, I'm just rooting for you in general, EC. All right,
Thank
great
you.
show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For EC, for Kens, for Proppy, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.